Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and welcome to attempt number 2 of my review of Twisted Fables. And I say attempt number 2 because attempt number 1, I did not plug in my mic, which means I actually really liked that video. I thought it had a good pace going on, all that kind of stuff, but either way, let's try attempt number 2 and see how this one plays out. This is a review of Twisted Fables, and to be specific, it is a prototype review. This is a game that is not out yet. It is currently on Kickstarter. Everything you see here, in theory, is its prototype form. I say in theory because it looks pretty darn finished to me, although I don't know if it's still going to be tweaked or who knows what, but for just in case, let's call it a prototype review because I don't know what will or will not be changed, so let's just go with that. The game on Kickstarter is going to have a few different options. There's currently the standee basic retail option, which you see in front of me, and then there's a deluxe miniature option which gives you additional expansions, additional characters, additional the 2 versus 2 mode I talked about, a playmat, deluxeified miniatures for all the characters, lots more stuff in that deluxe option. As far as the game itself, this is a 2-player head-to-head game, technically 2 versus 4 player because it does have a 2v2 mode, but I'm going to be focusing more on the 2-player because, well, I think it's primarily that, and also that's the only way I've played it. The game is going to be very much in line with games like Flash Duel or games like BattleCon and Exceed. There's going to be a card row in the middle, which represents these locations that you're going to be moving back and forth along. You're going to move, you get closer, attack, retreat, defend. It's going to have that 2-player head-to-head action very similar to that style of game. You're going to be going at each other, but the difference, the thing where Twisted Fables is very different than those games, is that it is a deck builder. This is a game where you will not be coming in with your pre-constructed character that you get to learn all their ins and outs. Rather, your character will have differences. Your character will have things that make them unique, but it's going to primarily be possibly a specific player power that you see printed on their board, and then from there you have different card decks you can deck build from. So in this game, which is very much going to have deck building as a central mechanic, you're going to be building your deck both from a common pool of actions, which you'll have attack, move, and defend options in different tiers of how strong those actions are, as well as deck building from your own personal supply. Each character will have 3 different decks, and they have a specific order to that deck. You have to draft the first 2s, then you'll get a twist, which we'll cover soon. Then you get the 3s. You have to go specifically down that rabbit hole. I say rabbit hole because Alice is in this game, but you're going to have to go down that rabbit hole of deck building a specific tree, a tech tree for each of the characters, and that's going to be how the game plays out. So you're going to spend the first half of the game slowly but surely building up your deck. It's going to be a slow starter, a bit of a slow burn as you go round by round, trying to build up your characters to get them to be powerful enough that you can actually start accelerating endgame and taking people out. And in the second half of the game, you're going to start comboing those abilities, because in this game, there's 2 types of cards we already talked about. So first of all, there's going to be basic cards, and then there's going to be skill cards. Now, skill cards let you do cool things, more fun things, things unique to your characters, but those skill cards do require a basic card to power up. So for instance, this is a movement-based skill card. I'll have to give up a movement in order to power this card, and that is a fascinating balance to the game, which we'll again talk about soon in terms of the things I like about the game. And in fact, let's go straight to that. So for Twisted Fables, there's a lot that I like about the game. I love the art. The art is absolutely gorgeous, and in fact, that is why I'm reviewing the game right now. I saw the art, I saw it from Dimension Games, and I was like, this game looks amazing, and so I reached out to the publisher and basically requested a review copy. I was like, this game looks right up my alley. It looks, well, not right up my alley, I'll explain that soon, but this game looks like a game that I would hopefully enjoy, and I wanted to give it a review. I say hopefully enjoy because those 2-player head-to-head games, historically speaking, they have not stayed in my collection. I put out a video a long time about 2-player competitive games and how over time I tend to get rid of them because I can't sit there and learn the nuances of every single BattleCon character so that we can actually have a properly balanced game, because I've played it 15 times, you've played it 15 times. I like to be able to hop into a game and have a good time right off the bat without having to learn the nuances of these cards will counter those cards and this character's better against that character and all that stuff. I want to get going straight off the bat in my gameplay. And so I reached out to the publisher. The game looks, like I said, the game looks amazing. The miniatures, if you want to check them out, they look amazing. Overall, this is just a visually delightful game, from the art on the box, to the cards, to the characters, to everything you're seeing. And more importantly than the art itself, the world building in this game is great. Every character very much has their own flavor. This is going to be Twisted Fables, so it's going to take popular Fable characters such as Alice, such as Mulan, such as whoever, I don't think Sleeping Beauty's in it. We have Sleeping Beauty, we have Little Mermaid, lots of different options you'll be able to play as, and each of those characters brings their own flavor to the table. And most of them line up pretty well. There were 1 or 2 where I just felt that the mechanics were just there to have mechanics, but most of them really feel like they matched that Fable, like they gave them a personality that's very much their own. Mulan has this whole chi thing going on where she can slowly but surely power up by saving up chi and then unleashing it in these powerful attacks, defenses, drawing cards, or whatever. Alice is just Twisted. Alice has this whole Mad Hatter character thing going on, where she has different personas, different avatars that she can swap back and forth. Maybe she's playing as the Cheshire Cat, then she's playing with the Mad Hatter, then the Red Queen, and each of those personas is going to adjust her playstyle. Meanwhile, she's going to be moving through you, and every time you move through her or move back and forth, you're going to be drawing cards, and she has a mechanic of she's going to have these cards where you're going to play basically because of the whole Red Queen, all those cards they have. You're going to have this card called Deal the Cards, where you have to force your other player to expose their hand and show all the basic cards, and then you could possibly steal them, possibly deal damage. Each character very much does bring its own flavor to the table. The world building, like I said, in addition to the art, is off the charts. The power balance in this game, the fact that you have to choose in this game frequently in terms of whether to go for more of a deck building thing or to do cool things. And what I mean by that is we talked briefly about it, but those skill cards require a basic card to power up. The problem is in this game, when you play basic cards, when you play basic movement, basic attacks, and basic defense, when you do that in this game, you're going to earn power. And that power is what you use to further build your deck. So, for instance, if I, attack you twice and defend, I've not only attacked you twice and defend, I've also earned 3 power. I can then turn around and use that power to buy a level 2 card, thus slightly powering up my deck. When you use a skill augmented by a basic card, you don't get that power. So you're frequently choosing between exercising and using your deck in its current state in order to actually do more powerful stuff, or having slightly subpar actions but being able to build it up towards a better deck. And I love that balance in the game of having to choose between those two. I like the countering play styles in this game. And what I mean by that is, let's just use my last game as a basic reference point. In my last game, I was playing as Mulan, and I walked in specifically having this idea of how I wanted to play out the game. I looked through my card decks, I got a feel for the character, and I said to myself, not to my opponent, that I wanted to build out a deck in a certain way. And then as Alice started attacking, as Alice started doing things in terms of the way her deck was being built and the ability she was using and the gameplay she was trying, I ended up trying to completely shift my strategy to counter what she was doing. This game is going to have a lot of countering back and forth, both in the basic cards themselves as well as in the skill cards. If you have a character who's constantly trying to close the distance between you, you might need to buff up on either defense or perhaps movement to be able to more accurately control the board yourself. You have the right hand of cards. You have a 3 movement card and a 3 attack card and a 2 movement card, and you can sit there and move forward someone, attack them, and then jump back. There's a lot of things you can do in this game, and adjusting to your player's deck, adjusting to your opponent's play style, those are things that really will make a difference to this game. There very much is not just the goal of building out your character, but also the goal of building out your character in a way that counters the way your opponent is building their character. And the last thing I'd say, another thing I particularly liked is the twist cards and the breakpoint cards. And what those are, let's cover the breakpoint cards first. But what happens in the game is, as you hit a certain point with your health, you'll get reduced to what your opponent's breakpoint is. And from there, you'll get to choose one of 3 cards, 3 special cards unique to them, and add one of those to your deck. And those cards are particularly powerful and will join your deck as a permanent addition. You'll get it in your hand right away, be able to play it, and then it'll start cycling through. Like I said, it's a deck builder. And those cards are a lot of fun, very powerful. It's very satisfying to get one of those into your hand, deck, etc. The other thing I particularly like is the twist cards. And the twist cards is, as you build out your deck, as you go through each of these stacks, what you're going to want to do, what you're going to inherently do, is you're going to uncover these cards that are referred to as twist cards. And those cards don't go into your deck. They don't join your ever-evolving deck. Rather, they go in front of you, and they are a permanent ability that adjusts and modifies your character. And because of the inherent nature of the way they're in each of these stacks, they often augment your deck that goes very nicely together with the cards already in your deck to help augment your deck in a way that meshes together nicely. And those skill cards, those twist cards, are a lot of fun to have in front of you to power up your character, such that that slow start to the game ends up throughout the game being increasingly more powerful as both players ramp up towards an epic finale. In terms of what I don't like about the game, in terms of what I did not like about Twisted Fable, there's a few small accessibility things, and then one thing that really is more about the promise I wanted to see in the game. And those accessibility things are twofold. And first of all, what we have here is we have these cards over here, these basic cards you have. The way they structure them is they structure that they're colored. So a level 1 card is colored blue, a level 2 card is colored blue, sorry, a level 1 card is colored yellow, a level 2 card is colored blue, and a level 3 card is colored red. And that's the way they did this whole structure here, and it doesn't really make intuitive sense. Intuitively, when you're looking at the cards, you would think the attacks are one color, the defenses are one color, and the movement is one color. And they do have a whole explanation as to why they did that way in terms of matching your twist cards as well, which are also go with a yellow, blue, red structure. So I understand why they did it, but practically speaking, it ends up being a little confusing and not as obvious as I would like in terms of what cards are in my hand. Not a big deal to be sure, but definitely a slight accessibility issue. The second thing, which is an accessibility issue, is these relic cards. Over here on this central board, not only is it basically a board that you're going to be moving back and forth across, they also represent these relics that once per turn you can discard a skill card to activate a relic and the text on that relic. And the text is tiny. It is absolutely tiny, like it's minuscule. What you're effectively going to have to do, because you can't just look at these 9 cards across the table and figure out what the text is, you're going to basically learn the cards slowly, and then once you kind of put together, you're like, oh yeah, that picture is that one. You're basically going to remember the relics rather than actually being able to read them, because the text in this game is tiny. And that's true across the board, by the way. That's true on skill cards as well. In general, this game has a very, very small font size to the point of inhibiting the accessibility of the game. Not a deal breaker, but certainly something I wish would have been a bit different. The bigger problem for me, the bigger thing that I wanted to see in this game is, as much as I like a lot of the back and forth in this game, as much as I like the deck building, I like the head-to-head fighting, I really wanted to see more. And what I mean by that is, at the end of the day, with only 3 tech trees, with only 3 actual stacks of cards per character, plus of course the basic cards, and the basic cards will give you variance, at the end of the day, I too often felt like there wasn't a lot to explore in each character. Each time I played a new character was fun. Okay, great, let me try that new character. But I just don't see there being that many plays per character in this game before you feel like you've explored them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. Games like BattleCon or whatever will have that as well, but it's a bigger deal because of the fact that this is a deck building game. Meaning effectively in the game, the first half of the game is very heavily devoted to actually building out your deck, actually building out your character. And that kind of busy work can be incredibly rewarding if you feel like you are in control of your deck, if you feel like you are really building out your deck in a variety of ways, in different ways that counter your opponent, that build out towards whatever vision you have. But if you limit the number of potential feelings that your deck will give you, and again, think of any deck building game, think of Dominion, the way you build out your deck in Dominion is going to drastically vary game to game. But the way you build out your deck in Twisted Fables will not drastically vary game to game. You will have different options, you will have to adjust, but at the end of the day, each character only has a finite degree of feeling because of the fact that they each only have 3 tech trees to go down. And so I wish that there were more options in that deck building so that the deck building didn't feel like a chore and did feel rewarding. Now, to be clear, it doesn't feel like a chore yet because I'm still fairly new to this game. I only have a couple of games under my belt, and so I'm still in that new phase. But in terms of the longevity of the game, if I ever get to a point where I feel the first half of the game is just busy work, then that is when I would decide to get rid of Twisted Fables. And I think this game is primed for an expansion that mixes that up. What I would love to see, and Dimension Games, if you pay attention to this review, if you see this review, what I would love to see in this game as an expansion, I assume not this Kickstarter, but down the road, would be the idea that each character, each of these each of these fables in this game, I would love to see them have not only their 3 stacks of cards, but also, let's say, 2 stacks of cards that get added to a common pool, which I think would really flesh out the game. And even if it's only 1 per card, even if each character only gets 1 card that gets added to a common pool, because of the nature of the fact that you're playing 2 players head to head, that would inherently add a minimum of 2 different options on the table of ways you can build it out. Additionally, it would mix it up because the way Mulan can build her deck would be significantly better. If it's not better, Mulan would have different ways of building out her deck depending if she's fighting, Alice or if she's fighting the Little Mermaid. If you added that common pool aspect to the characters, it would totally shift up the possibilities on the table for the way a character can build out your deck. And that's really my dream for this game, because I like the core going on here. I want to see a bit more in the way you can flesh out the actual character development throughout the game. Past that, my final thoughts for this game is I very much enjoy Twisted Fables and I want to add it to my collection. Like I said already, I don't generally enjoy this genre. This genre of 2-player head-to-head games, I find that they don't last in my collection to the point that I have stopped getting them in general. I made an exception for Twisted Fables, and as of right now, I'm glad I did. As far as the longevity in my collection, which is something I talk about in my reviews, I'm not sure, because like I said already, it really comes back to everything I talked about already, which is I like the game, I like the mechanics, I like the feeling of the characters, the back and forth. It was very rewarding after our first play, I'll come back to in a second, but over time, I don't know if I will continuously feel that freshness and that fun of building up my character with the limited development that each individual character has. I definitely want to see an expansion for this game, and particularly I want to see an expansion the way I thought of it, because I think that would add so much variety to the builds you can come up with and to the way the game would play out. That thing I mentioned a second ago is that my first play of Twisted Fables, myself and my wife were both not impressed with our first play. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's because of the fact that we played without the relic cards, something they suggest for the first game, not playing with the relic track. I don't know if it's if it's the starting characters, which they recommend as being simpler and more accessible characters. I don't know what it was. Maybe we just weren't used to the strategy or development. I don't know. But at the end of the day, my first play of it was very much like, this is okay. Don't see a reason to play it again, but we're doing a review, so we're going to play it a few more times. And I'm glad that we did, because my first play, like I said, was not for us. Our second and so on plays were significantly better and significantly more rewarding. And like I said, as of right now, Twisted Fables is a game that I want to add to my collection. I recommend checking it out on Kickstarter. It's on Kickstarter right now for probably a few more days whenever you watch this review. And if you're watching this review after the Kickstarter, well, I'm sure it'll hit retail eventually. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask me in the comments down below, and I will try to answer them as well as frequently as I can. Until next time, have a good one.